In the 3 months that I worked in villages in Africa, I never heard a baby cry, not once. Not one baby cried. Because those mothers were taken care of. You hear me? And that's some hell of motherhood, not a baby crying, because their society was organized around some happiness, and mothers knew how to be mothers. And this is part of what Blyden observed. And by the way, his observations are similar to mine. When I got the vision that led to my most important book, Return to the African Mother Principle of Male and Female Equality, I spent time in the villages in Ghana. And when I was finished, and in fact, I said before, I'd hooked up with Leonard, Rosalind Jeffries, Wade Nobles, as they had been traveling throughout Africa in Accra, I hooked up with them. And then I went into villages and observed those villages. And one of the things that I already knew, but it became clear as I spent time in these villages, to understand the nation in Africa. We're talking traditional Africa. To understand the region or the district, if you have a stratified, organized system, you have to understand the family. And it is the lineage that is really the foundation for African family systems. Lineages are large common blood groups where people share common ancestors. And so the way the lineage in Ghana was raised is the way the nation was run. The way they were run at the lineage level is the way the nation was run. The same qualities they look for in a lineage head, they look for in the national head. The lineage head in Ghana was opinion, called opinion. Originally, that was an elder woman because the first Ghanaian system was ruled by women. And then later, when war came, they ended up with dual stools, a stool for the Asante Hina, the king, and a stool for the woman, Asante Wa, queen mother. And so then opinion shifts to the eldest male, but the eldest male had to be the one that was most just, the one that never lied, that one that never turned his back on a war party, who was brave, the one who never cursed, the one who never disrespected women or children or elders. This is the one you elected to be opinion, and opinion was just first among equals because the decision of the lineage was the consensus of all members of the lineage. And that was the same rule for being king in the Asante system. Now, to be queen mother, you didn't need any rules. You know, she just automatically queen mother. You're not going to tell your mother what her qualities had to be, but your mother's definitely going to tell you what yours had to be. You hear me? And so it had to be the same one with the same qualities, and he could not be inducted into office until the queen mother had trained him along with his council, but especially the queen mother, in the duties of being king. He then gave up all his wealth, and the wealth you saw him surrounded with, the gold that he had, it belonged to the people. He didn't own anything himself. And he was bound by the decision of his council that was made up of opinions, that is, the just lineage heads from different districts. You hear me? So family ruled how the nation was run, and it was based on balance between male and female. It was based on justice. And so this is what Blyden saw. Blyden had some real good eyes because he located the foundation of the traditional African governance system, of African life and customs on the family. He saw the family as being the foundational principle on which everything else was organized. Now, Blyden noted that family organization was based on how Africans observed nature. And they replicated natural systems into all of their organizational systems: family, economy, government, spirituality, the whole full of wax, education. What he noted was that in the way in which women were treated, the way in which childbirth was treated, was tied very much to their observation of also how nature operated, particularly land. They observed that for a land to be fertile, it had to go fallow. You had to have periods of time where the land could rest. African women, according to Blyden, insisted that in childbirth, there be space between the birth of a second or third child. And that space was at least 3 years. That meant in most cases, no sex for 3 years, unless you had a very proven way of birth control. And in most cases, it meant no sex for 3 years, because the woman needed to recuperate and she needed to have time to take care of her first child. And then when the second child came along, and if there was a third. So according to Blyden, this was the basis for polygamy, that African women, according to him, insisted on it because they needed space births, and men aren't going to be going without sex, particularly in the prime of their life, for that many years. And then a second observation he made was African women, because remember, they're coming out of a collective thing, not like we are individual, that this is my husband, I own him, this is my wife, I own her. They also insisted, African women did, that second wives often be their friends so that they could have companions. Because if men haven't learned one thing, you can't serve all the needs of a woman. And I'm not here arguing for polygamy. I'm giving you his reasons for it. But women need companionship among women. They like their male companionship, but there's certain things women can do for each other, man can't. There's feminine things, you understand? Feminine things. If you brothers don't understand that, go back to school and find out. Now, Blyden also observed that African education was much more effective in preparing mothers for motherhood and fathers for fatherhood, and mothers and fathers for their full roles in life. And he understood this by doing something that I've been doing, this book that I'm writing now. I'm now into the heart of it. By the way, I've come up with a picture for the cover. And I'm right now doing rewriting on secret societies. Something that most of us don't study. Secret societies were like the foundation for the creation of communities among free men and women of color in the United States. It was key to all systems in the Caribbean and in South America. Africans took secret societies out of Africa, which were the real educational systems, and they brought them into the Caribbean, South America, and the United States. And as Carter G. Woodson observed, secret societies is one of the strong institutions that Africans maintained throughout and after enslavement. And so Blyden studied the secret societies. He observed them. And he noted that the Society for Women for Liberia was the Bundo, B-U-N-D-O, secret society. And for men, it was the Poro Society, which spread beyond Liberia. It was the largest of secret societies in Africa. And these were the primary educational systems. Now, this I don't get from Blyden. Secret societies, I've mentioned this before, but I haven't gone into depth, and I'll go into it when you finish, you read the book when it comes out, you'll get it. Secret societies were the educational systems for Africa. These secret societies gave birth to what becomes per Ankh, House of Life, the universities of ancient Kemet, that are the highest universities in the world. But they're all mystery systems where the education involves a life, death, rebirth, transformation. Blyden didn't deal with this, not because he didn't know it, he just didn't mention it in his book. I'm just adding this. And so education was carried out through secret societies. Kemet takes it to its highest level. They trained everything in secret societies in Kemet at Per Ankh, which means House of Life, except warriors. I pointed this out before. And they had different centers in Kemet where different universities operated. And they trained everybody that, needed to be trained as astrophysicists, as priests who were also healers, as architects, as administrators, as scribes, as every trade, every profession that you needed to run a society. And they were all literate in Medu Neter. In the secret societies of West, East, Central, and South Africa, most were oral, and people's books were their minds. And they didn't forget anything, And so he noted that in the Bundo secret society, only women belonged to the Bundo secret society, and these were the elder women who had experienced marriage, motherhood, who had become grandparents, who had experienced a lot in life. And these were the teachers who trained the young girls. This is, he makes the point, this is very different from Western education, because the one thing Western education leaves out is how to prepare a mother and a father for motherhood and fatherhood. That's left to trial and error. And so people take it as almost natural that this is something you have to learn on your own. Africans knew better. They knew that this is something that had to be based on wisdom, had to be based on experience. And so girls were taught everything about child rearing. Girls were taught everything about medicine. You didn't need hospitals because the family was the hospital. You hear me? And you didn't have that many people who had mental disorders, because when I get to this other feature of African societies, you didn't have the thing that drives people crazy. And this is a system that drives people crazy. You understand? Huh. This is a savage, inhumane system. It's a nutty fruitcake system. And so if some people get thrown off, it's because of the imbalance in the society. So the women who belong to the Bundo society, and I should point out, only women belong to the Bundo society. But in every Poro or every male secret society, there was a woman in it. Even though the men were the first to set up secret societies, the sisters know to get in on your secrets. You know what I mean? But they got some secrets they're not sharing with you because they raised your butt. You understand? So they got some secrets that you ain't never gonna know. You think you know. Most of you don't even pick the wife you have or the girlfriend you have. They picked you. You don't think so. And in some cases, they didn't. If you got real good in the dynamics, it took until my second marriage for me to even get to play in that game. You know what I mean? That's how good sisters are at socialization. So the Bundo society prepared women for everything they needed to know throughout life. Whereas in Europe, the way this was handled and still is that when girls are being trained, they're often being trained by spinsters, women who were never married, who don't know squat about anything about human growth and development, how to raise a child. And many of them are spinsters, which Africa had none of, those who've never been married. So what are they going to be able to tell you about marriage? You know what I mean? So this produced people who are masters of life. Blyden knew that men were taught manhood through male secret societies, and the Poro was a main one. Now, these are things he doesn't cover that I know, that the Poro society was the largest of the West African secret societies, as I just mentioned. But they played a very important part as the wars are occurring through colonialism and slavery. They play a very important part in picking kings. Kings feared them because it's a secret society. They were the police people in the society. And if you did wrong, the poro comes into the society, you could disappear. You understand? And that could be a king. So poro didn't play. And the poro were warriors. Senku came out of the poro society, the Amstead Rebellion. Senku, their favorite weapon was a machete. Must have been some poro in the Cuban Revolution, because when I was in Cuba in 83 and 84, representing the National Black United Front, negotiating some agreements with the Cuban government, I have a picture of me in their National Museum, and it's a picture of a Cuban warrior, African, who sliced a Spaniard in half with a machete. The African loves a blade, and a machete is one of the favorite weapons all over the Caribbean. They love the machete. You don't want to get into no fight with nobody who's got a machete. You understand? And it's only when old Teddy Roosevelt and them intervened that they stopped the blacks from taking over Cuba. But many of these were poro. These were secret society, some of them leopard society, and others, fighters. And anyone from the age of 18 to 35 who became enslaved in this country came out of secret societies. The African Lodge, which I've been studying more deeply recently, founded by Prince Hall, is the earliest of the secret societies established by free men and women of color, because they had their own enslavement, and hardly no historians know anything about this because it was secret, baby. But that secret society called the African Lodge, set up by Prince Hall, which I have to note again from my wife, from Barbados. You hear me? Barbados. That is the earliest institution, the oldest institution that blacks created in this country. And that institution has prevailed to this day, and it is centered around Kemet. And it's got some deep Kemetic stuff in it. And it has helped Black people survive through the vagaries of slavery, post-Reconstruction, Jim Crow, do you hear me? Right to this day, producing some great leaders. And you probably wouldn't have a Garvey movement but for that, because it had a very strong fraternal secret society kind of emphasis in it, as well as the Nation of Islam. It has a lot of that in there as well. So these societies, Blyden noted, were total educational societies, and they created highly moral people and people who developed agricultural, political, and economic systems.